Hi, Tom. I hope the lighting isn't as weird as I think it might be, because I'm missing one of my lamps right now, but I'm also working off of battery power, so I'm shooting in the dark here. At least you can hear my voice and you can see my fingers, so if there's Frankenstein shadows, I apologize. So I'm going to be very focused on this video. You asked for some information about chromatic scales. I sent you that video. So maybe I don't even need to show you that, but I'll show you anyway. And then you asked for a G major 3-octave scale fingering, and I've got something to add about chromatic scales. So let's start with that. So you watched the chromatic scale video, and there's many different fingerings you can use. There's the cheater fingering, which would be open 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, and then that takes you to the next open string. So the useful thing to know is how many half steps there are between each string. There's, if you count the bottom string, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the 8th half step would be the next string over. Now that only applies when you're in the lower strings, because once you start climbing up the E string into the umpteenth positions, it doesn't matter, because you just have to, you don't get a string crossing. I'm digressing. So the cheater fingering is open 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, and you just scooch each finger for 2 notes. But that, in high speeds, that can get sloppy and not very articulate. So the standard classic chromatic scale fingering, you already know from the video I already showed you, and it's what you guessed. Open 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that takes you to the 8th half step. And that was a little out of tune. This really, practicing chromatic scales really teaches you what a true half step is on your fingers. I don't know the size of your hands. My fingers are average, I think. Some people have really teeny tiny fingertips, and they don't have to squish their fingers together really close to get a half step. In fact, they have to have a little space between their fingers. So you have to learn exactly how much you have to cram your fingers to get those 8 half steps, those 8 half steps to put you perfectly in tune for the next string. So that was better. I made my half steps a little smaller. So anyway, do a little experimenting and learn, how your hand feels when you're doing half steps. So that's the classic fingering, and I think the video explained what to do when you get up on the E string. You can just play 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and hopefully you know where to stop for your ending note. It's that unscientific. Now, one last thing about chromatic scales. You were asking about a single finger chromatic scale. I think what you're talking about is in really showy music, virtuosic music. They'll do something like something like that. That was a really bad example. Ergo. So sometimes they do it just by shaking the hand in little half-step motions. Sometimes they combine it with a staccato, an up-bow staccato. So here's with staccato. Something like that. It's very hard to control, and I'd need to practice it for a while. But that's just in virtuosic songs. It can be done with any finger. Most violinists prefer the middle finger just because it's fleshy and it's the longest, and I don't know, it's our best vibrato finger. So let me show you the non-staccato with chromatic scale. I went off screen. So it's literally kind of a vibrato glissando, kind of. So hopefully that answers your befuddlement about the one finger chromatic scale. Now, let me show you a G major fingering for a 3-octave scale. You asked for the scale that goes all the way from the top to the bottom. Technically, there's another octave. We, as violinists, most music majors, most professional violinists, only dabble in 3-octave scales. And that's more than sufficient. So you go from G to G to G. But for the nerds of the violin world, there's another G. So this bit of fingerboard could give you another octave. I'm not going to show you that today. Just know that it's possible. I would really just rather you learn the 3-octave classic fingering that you need to know. And here's a secret for you. If you learn 3 fingerings for violin 3-octave scales, you can play any major scale out of all 12 possibilities. So G major is the one that you have to learn. A major is another that you have to learn, and B flat is another that you have to learn. Once you know those scales, you can transport that fingering to different parts of the fingerboard and play that same fingering, but starting on a different note, and it gives you all the other keys. I think that makes sense because you know guitar so well. So let me teach you the 3-octave G major scale. What you need to do is keep track of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do in your ear. And while you're doing that, just know what string you have to shift on and after what finger you have to shift. So ear training combined with just a little bit of memorization will give you this fingering. So the classic fingering is on the G string. In first position, that's pretty simple, right? So that's the first octave. The second octave continues with 3, A, B, C, and after that low 2 C, you gotta shift. Now you're in third position. And that's your second G. So you're in third position on the A string. We haven't even used the E string yet. Okay, so where did you shift on the A string? After 1, 2, this low 2 C natural, then you shifted to a first finger D, which put you in third position. Okay, I'll show you that octave again. 3 on the D string. Then you shift. Okay, now the last octave goes 4, 1, 2, and shift again on the E string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. We stretch our pinky, we tap the toe for the last note so that we don't have to shift again. So I ended in 5th position, and my top note was accomplished with a pinky extension. Now let me come down and then we'll talk about it a little bit. 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come back down the same way. 2, 1, 4. And then the second octave. You can play open A or 4th finger A. Same with D string. You can play open or 4th finger. I'll play 4. So now let's just review about the shifts that I just showed you. On the A string, you go 1, 2, 1. On the E string, you go 1, 2, 1. So there's one shift on each string, and each one is after a second finger. 1, 2, shift 1. 1, 2, shift 1. Okay, you start in first position. Your first shift takes you to third position. Your second shift takes you to fifth position. We won't go into too much about that, just it's helpful to know and to recognize that you're skipping over second position, you're going from first to third, and then you skip over fourth position and go from third to fifth. Now, I don't know if you noticed my left hand up in the high at the top. Because our fingers are different lengths, if all 4 fingers are going to be on the string at the same time, someone's got to crouch down. And it's the tallest ones have to crouch down so that they're the same height as the shrimp of the class, so that everyone's the same length as Pinky. So that's why you saw me go, watch my left hand. See how he caved in? And this is standard violin technique because you glue your fingers because you know you're going to need those same notes coming down. That was really bad. This position is not easy to stand in, to my defense. And then after Pinky gets off the string, then the hand can start relaxing. Let me show you one more time. Now the hand stands up and they cave in at that first joint. Okay, now one other thing. There's a shift that I call the Hail Mary shift. Was I clever enough to make that up? You know, like the Hail Mary pass in football? I hope I was the clever one that thought that up, but I probably wasn't. So instead of coming down the same way that you went up, you could just take one flying leap and go all the way from fifth position to first position and get it over with on the E string. Let me show you what that looks like. So you go 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, instead of shifting to third position, I'm going to shift from 1 all the way to 4. And then I'm done shifting. We could go up the same way if we wanted to, but it's just not done. I can't think of a good reason why we don't go up the same way. I don't know why. It's a fine fingering. It's just riskier. That's why I call it the Hail Mary shift. So let's talk about those shifts. If you're coming up the scale and you go 1, 2, 1, then coming down, it's going to go 1, 2, 1. Maybe that wasn't necessary for me to say, but going up on the E string, you're going to go 1, 2, and 1, right? So then coming down, we shift 1, 2, 1. So now what I'll do is I'll play through it straight through so you can play along, and we'll do it the classic way, first to third, third to fifth, no Hail Mary. And then the second way, we'll climb up the classic way, but we'll jump down using a Hail Mary shift. Okay, this will be a good practice sequence for you, and it'll force you to not go too fast, because I know you like to go too fast. Here we go. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 1 tonic. Shift. Repeat your tonic. Shift. Shift to 2. Shift to 2. Now, I'm repeating the tonic just because until you get your bearings, and then when you get more advanced and you're ready to go faster, which will be soon, I'm sure, then you can quit repeating your tonic. And we do a thing called the accelerating scale, which was invented by Galamian. And I don't want to overload you right now, but I know you're going to want to know what it is. The accelerating Galamian scale starts with half notes. It starts really slow. And then it goes to quarter notes twice as fast. Then triplet quarter notes. And then eighth notes, slurring 4. And then sextuplet eighth notes, slurring 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then slurring 8s. I guess this would be 16th notes. And then 12s. I think of 12s as 4 triplets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then 16s, slurring 4 groups of 4. And then for the real show-offs, you can do 24. And that's, once again, I think of triplets with 24s. But it's basically all the way up in a down bow, and then all the way down in an up bow. I'm cheating because I don't have a metronome on, and so I'm conveniently slowing down slightly each time I add notes to the bowing. So that's the Galamian accelerating scale. You'll notice I didn't play it straight up and down. I added a few notes at the beginning and end. That's simply a trick Galamian devised to give us a better common denominator so that the bowings work out perfectly for 2s, 3s, 4s, 6s, 8s, 12s, 16s, and 24s. So we add this turn where we go tonic, a third up, and then back to the tonic, and then you go on up the scale. And that just adds the perfect number of notes to make it so that it works out. You do not need to start doing that yet. Just get your fingering and your shifting really solid. You want those shifts. Work on those shifts because that's the root of all evil. Shifts and string crossings is where 98% of mistakes happen, or imperfections, or ugly sounds. What else can I tell you? We talked about the shifting up, shifting down. Oh, we're going to do the scale with shifting down using the Hail Mary shift. This is the fingering I use. That's the one that I resorted to when I was demonstrating the accelerating scale. So that's what we're going to do now. But just play big bows. We're not even trying to do acceleration. And we'll repeat our tonic. Ready? Go. Shift. Get ready for a Hail Mary. Hail Mary. Okay, so I think that's what you asked. You did ask about vibrato. I have vibrato down to a science. And I mean, if you're serious about vibrato, get my course, the $33 Vibrato Part 1 course. It'll teach you all the prep exercises and everything. I mean, I can teach it to you personally. In fact, I'd need to check up with you. If you start learning it, then I'd want to do a troubleshooting lesson with you. But it would be cheaper and faster and frankly more organized if you just got my Vibrato Part 1 course. So that's it. I hope this touched on everything that you wanted. I have a list of other questions that you asked me about satie, left hand pizzicato, staccato, spiccato. I've got good ideas for these things. Positions, the Paganini Moto Perpetuo. I will work on that for you. And then meditation. And that one guy gave you some good tips on the left hand pizzicato to pull it really hard. You do have to. I haven't played that for freaking years. Goes fast if you don't keep doing it. That piece is by Sarasate. Look it up. It's a piece called Zigeunerweisen, and it's just a gypsy song, I think is what that means. And you'll love it. It's a really cool piece. So have fun. I will talk about the Moto Perpetuo. I'll get the sheet music to you soon. Okay? Bye.